Whether you are looking to lend a couple $100,000 out of your self-directed IRA or run a full-time hard money lending company, the same rules apply. We're going to give you the 5 rules to be in the bank right now.
Welcome to the Private Lenders Podcast with your host from Hard Money Bankers, Jason Balin and Chris Haddon. This podcast is sponsored by hardmoneymastermind.com.
Hey everyone, thanks for checking out the show. We do appreciate it. If you've been considering coming to work with us at one of our live workshop masterminds, we have one coming up here in Maryland in June. To learn more, just go to hardmoneymastermind.com, click on live events, and schedule a time to talk to our team. All right. So whether you are doing 1,000 loans or you're doing one loan to a local real estate investor that you know, the same rules apply, right? It's the same animal. Like, we're not talking about the entire scope of the operation, about building out a team and the software and all of that stuff, heavy ad budgets. We're talking about the nuts and bolts, right? The basics of lending safely so that you don't lose any money because the first mortgage lender on a real estate deal is supposed to take the lowest amount of risk, most likely the lowest amount of return. And that's the way it's supposed to be. You're not speculating here. The flipper or the person acquiring the deal is doing the speculating. You're just being the bank.
No doubt. And that's where the term be the bank comes from. You're the lender, you're the bank, you're the capital source. It's either your money or it's money that you're responsible for that you have raised from another capital investor, maybe in your fund, maybe you did direct placement. Either way, you have a responsibility to that capital and you can't lose it. But more importantly, obviously more importantly, you can't lose it. But secondary, it should make the expected rate of return that you had set for to do so. So we're going to go through about 5 items, 5 things that every private lender needs to understand about lending money if they are going to take on the role and responsibility to be their own bank. So let's dive in.
Let's dive in. All right. Rule number one, how to source deals. And this is why this is so important. If you only have one deal to look at, you're not going to have a whole lot of confidence in quoting the loans the way that you want. Enough down payment, the interest rate you want, the points. If you only have one deal to look at, there's a good chance that the terms of that deal are going to be dictated by the borrower. There are definitely private lenders who show up at local meetup groups and fall into this trap. They meet a borrower and the borrower is a flipper and they dictate to the lender, to the capital source, what the terms can be. And they're usually way in the borrower's favor and not in the lender's favor. For example, if you've had requests for 100% financing and they're accruing interest and you're not going to get paid anything until the loan pays off in full, that is 100% in the borrower's favor and 0%, not 0%, but way less in the favor of the lender. And in order to quote the deals that you want, the terms that you want, you have to have lead flow. You have to have deals.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like a lot of members of our group think that Chris and I are just, oh, you guys are so conservative. You turned out everything. And it's like, we'll do every good deal that we believe is a good deal, that we believe is going to perform, that we believe borrower can execute on. We've done over 4,000 of them. We can see which deals are going to perform and which ones aren't going to perform. You try to perform, and a bank's not going to do a loan for a borrower that they don't think has a high likelihood of performing and getting paid back. It's just not going to happen. So for you as a private lender, it's the same concept. You have to do deals that perform. You lose money or you do one bad deal, like, you could be out of business. Or you could lose your retirement funds, or you could lose a lot of money. And there's no reason for that to happen besides, laziness, a little, not knowing things, which we're going to go through in kind of the next 4. But there's no excuse to not try to find opportunities. Just because you have capital doesn't mean that, you have this influx of deals of, oh, people are knocking down my door. I get it. Like, the first person you talk to at the meetup group is going to want high leverage and cheap terms. something that they can match their other private lender or an institutional capital partner, that might not be the best source or the best deal for you. And too many lenders are nervous that they're never going to get their money deployed unless they agree to the borrower's wishes and the borrower's terms. And that's just not the case. Yeah, you do have to do some, sourcing of deals and potentially some marketing. If you only have a smaller amount of money to deploy, it's not that challenging. As you grow as a full-on private lender, full-on hard money lending company, and we've seen these challenges with members of our mastermind group, same challenges that we've had. You go from lower hanging fruit or bottom of the funnel deal flow to middle of the funnel deal flow to top of the funnel deal flow. And that happens as you grow. But if you're a smaller lender, with pretty minimal effort, you still should be able to source the deals that you want from high quality borrowers that are willing to put skin in the game, that are willing to make monthly payments, and have a high likelihood of success and paying you back not just your principal, but all the interest that's owed as well.
And if you're interested in seeing a full podcast about how we source deals, just go check out a previous one. We hit that topic frequently. All right, moving on. Number 2, what is the maximum leverage, both as is value and after repair value, that a private lender should be doing? So you want to get some insight on that?
So listen, in a perfect world, you should always have at least 35% equity cushion, give or take. In a perfect world, always want 35% equity cushion in a deal. And what that means is if there's a property worth $200,000, the max loan you want to be in is about $130,000 because then you have $70,000 of equity, whatever, in order to eat up additional costs, fees, expenses, market downturns. You want to have that built-in equity. It's important. The rule of thumbs, 35%. Yeah, if it's a little bit less than that, are you going to make out? Probably. But I'll tell you that we've done lots of deals with even more equity than that. And when a borrower defaults, they really default. And it chews up every darn bit of it. Because this is what happens. When a borrower defaults, like I'm not talking about a borrower default where they miss a few payments and things like that. I'm talking about like a real default. That does happen. Borrower dies, borrower works on another project and decides they don't care about yours anymore because they don't have any skin in the deal. The market, whatever, really goes down in value. Borrower files bankruptcy because they're broke. They get tied into a lawsuit. Whatever it is, lots of different things. You got to come in and pay property taxes, come in and pay property insurance, come in and pay attorney's fees. The property value goes down because you're in a crappy market. More importantly, the biggest risk is the construction never gets done, or the property sits vacant and then it gets vandalized and torn apart or damaged, even with insurance, and you have too much deferred maintenance and it turns into a mess. So what we do inside our business is we'll lend up to 80% of the purchase price and 100% of the construction costs. So let's just say we're lending up to 80% of the purchase price. We only have 20% equity based on the as is value. Technically 20%, unless they buy it at a really good under market value. But technically we only have 20% equity day one. And then we lend up to 65% of the after repair value. So that means after the construction's done, if it's a fix and flip loan, we'll have 35% equity. Now, keep in mind, the only time we'll do 80% of purchase is if it's a fix and flip deal. If it's like a rental property and they own it free and clear and they need a bridge loan, we're not giving them 80%. We're probably giving them 40 to 65%, 65% max, because it's not improving. It's not increasing in value. If you take the risk of doing a little bit higher leverage on a fix and flip loan, as the borrower executes, your exposure goes down and down and down, right? Your risk goes down. So you get put into a better and better and better situation as the borrower increases and it does the property. So it differs, right? It varies depending on the types of deals that you're doing. But I will tell you that most loans, if it's a fix and flip property, your risk is day one. Your risk is day one. You have an as is value problem, not an after repair value problem. A big mistake that a lot of lenders do is they'll say, "Oh, if they buy it at a really good deal, I'll give them 100% financing." But don't worry, I'm still at a 65 or 70% value based off of my after repair value. So what that means is they buy it for 100 grand. I'm going to give them 100 grand, but they're going to improve this property. As soon as it's improved, it's going to be worth 150, but my loan's still 100. That's great if they improve the property. But what happens if it doesn't get improved? Most lenders do not have an after repair value problem. They have an as is value problem because they lend 100 on 100 and they miss a payment. They go in default. Something happens. Well, guess what? Like, you're losing not just potential opportunity interest, you're losing freaking principal at that point.
Now, if you're saying to yourself right now that, wait, the people I lend to, they don't want to bring that much cash into these deals, then I would go back and see rule number one, how to source deals. You need more deals in that case because that is the name of the game. All right, moving on to rule number 3. It is very, very important to have an attorney prepare your loan documents and review and negotiate the title insurance on your behalf. A lot of new lenders who come into our world, into our mastermind, are light on this one for sure. They might have been told like, "Oh, I just have the title company do the loan docs for me." The title company's got a conflict. They shouldn't be doing that. They work for the title insurer. They do not work for the lender, and they're playing both sides to earn some fees. It's kind of a no-no. Um, Hopefully, you haven't been in a position where you actually let the borrower do the loan docs, but I know that has happened out there. Um, it's even possible to do your own loan documents, finding a template online, throwing it in AI, but there's just more to it than that. And that's just documents. It's really the title negotiation side on your behalf. You should see the amount of stuff that our attorney's office strikes in that lender's title insurance document when it first come over, and then the way it ends up closing. They do a lot in that regard, and it's very easy to be unaware of that. It's very easy to be unaware of what we said just now, even for experienced lenders who've been around.
Yeah, they're stuck in, "Oh, I just do the docs myself," or, "I don't need an attorney to do that." I mean, do what you want, but I'll tell you where the risk is outlaid. And listen, we've had contested foreclosures, we've had title insurance claims. Like, over time, your loan doc set and the attorneys that are representing you, they end up being battle tested in of what happens. Because here's the reality of private lending. You do a deal, it's not structured right, you don't probably even have the right docs, you lend too much, the borrower dictates terms, and the loan pays off. And guess what? Hey, I had a successful investment. Let's go do another one. And then you do the same thing and the same thing and the same thing and the same thing. And that one day happens and you get nipped in the butt and all your money's gone. And that's how that happens. And you don't realize you did anything wrong. So many lenders come to us around like the $5 or so million deployed because I think they get to a point where like, wow, like I fumbled through this far and now I'm scared because this has turned into a real business or this is turning into a lot of money and I'm nervous and I want to make sure I'm buttoned up. And I get it. Like we've been through that. We see what happens. Like it's that's what happens. So like this isn't to scare anybody. This isn't to tell everybody or anybody they're doing it the wrong way. Just telling you from experience about how things play out in the real world because we've seen it. And I don't think anybody listening to this wants to lose money on any deals that they do. Like Chris started off this podcast, a first mortgage lender should not be in jeopardy of losing money. It's not a speculative deal. They're the first priority position. That's the reason that you left flipping houses or left a different type of investment vehicle to try to invest in these types of deals. You want to do it the safe and the smart way.
Okay, rule number 4, you have to have the right type of property insurance in place, and you as the lender need to be shown in the correct way on that policy. You wanna break down just talking about, residential stuff for the purpose of this, the 3 types
Yep.
of property insurance and when they apply?
Yeah, so I mean, typically a builder's risk policy, or you have a rental policy, or you have like a vacant property policy. Now, if you're going to do, and then all of them should have a liability policy. Typical standards is a million, 2 million bucks, depending on the character, the carrier. The liability side of the policy is fairly inexpensive. That's if somebody goes in the property and slips and falls, or you have somebody a end buyer going in and they get injured, or they're on your sidewalk and they trip or something like that. Like that's the liability side. The hazard policy, which is the builder's risk, the tenant or Vacant is fire damage, theft. If you have any other riders, the builder, the reason you get a builder's risk policy associated with it is it actually covers building materials as well. So the right way to do it is get a builder's risk policy with liability as the rider, one of the riders, no less than, in essence, your loan amount. You want it to be no less than your loan amount, ideally. Some jurisdictions, they set it up based on what the cost to rebuild is. If you're in a really high price point area, they might not give you your full loan amount, right? Because the cost to rebuild might be like 500 grand, but you're in an area that has very high land value and you have a property of, have a loan amount significantly higher. So you have to kind of make a business decision and get creative on that. Like, for instance, if this property burns down, I'm not going to get my full amount back, but I could also sell the land for 500 grand because that's what it's worth. And I can, make it up that way. But typically in the median housing price neighborhoods, you should be able to get a loan amount or a policy amount that matches your loan amount. And then that's for builder's risk, right? So it's got to be vacant, but contractors on site working on a regular basis. Then you have your tenant occupied policy, where let's say you do a bridge loan on a rental property, you have a tenant occupied policy, and that's actually cheaper than a builder's risk for vacant, usually, just because somebody's living there. There's less case of vandalism and things like that, but that's a tenant occupied policy. Then you have a vacant policy, which is typically the most expensive because it could be the most risk of loss with theft, vandalism, things like that. And that's if the property is completely unoccupied, and nobody's around there. That's a vacant policy. So it is important to make sure you have that and you add your company name as the mortgagee on that in case something happens. Typically, if there's, let's say there's like a fire and it's like $150,000 damage, typically what ends up happening is it'll be like a two-party check, which comes to you and it comes to the borrower. Usually gets mailed to your office, and then you guys can figure out either pays off the loan and they own the property free and clear, or yeah, it gets deposited in your escrow account, and then you do construction draws, depending on how you have it set up.
Yeah, so one detail on that part of it, whatever the lender name is on the loan docs, like it could be your IRA, your individual name, your company's name, should also be the mortgagee on the policy. So don't just like put your personal name here, even though the lender on paper is your IRA, for example. I know that people can mix that up. And there are a few boxes on that declaration page. You want to be the mortgagee or the loss payee. Don't be a certificate holder and don't be an additional insured. It's not necessary to do that. So a couple more details there. All right, number 5. I think a lot of private lenders new in the game make the mistake of not knowing very much at all about their borrower, other than they met him at a meetup group or they're referred by somebody and gave him a call, and they don't do any other research about the borrower. And there's different ways to know things about people. Like one, bank statement or income docs you can ask for. You don't always do that in this kind of lending, but you can if you want to. Credit reports, either one that you pull or one that they might have currently if they aren't set up for it. You can have them do a background check. We used to use Clear Checks. I think it was bought by backgroundchecks.com, and they have to okay it, and then it'll give you, for $50, a very detailed report pulling from a bunch of places. And then also now we have AI tools that could go out and do some research for you. And even like we've even picked up stuff over the years, just doing a simple Google search
Yeah.
of our borrower's name, who we wanted to look into, and maybe the city and state where they're from, and found some things that made us kill a deal.
Yeah, I think at the very least you need to be, well, two things. Number one, pulling credit. Number two, doing doing Google searches or ChatGPT searches. We built out something that we're critiquing in Claude recently, which is an AI LLM, which in essence is like, it's going out and trying to find data in a lot of different spots to determine credit risk. But again, Google, Gemini, one of those things, just something, see if something comes up. It comes up all the time. We had a deal right now where, uh, the borrower was an attorney and then he was disbarred. And we're like, I didn't know that. He didn't tell me that when I was on the phone with him. So you have to go through some of these things and figure out what's up. Some things that come up might not be a big deal, right? Some might be a big deal. You got to make that decision yourself if this is someone you want to do business with and not do business with. But it is important to understand some of those things. And a lot of the times it's not necessarily things that they would lie to you about, you know, but you find it and you see. I mean, there's lots of cases. I don't want to say lots of cases, but there's multiple times over the years that we'll Google somebody and they'll be involved in some sort of like financial crimes where, they had a fraud case or this happened. And it's like, dude, if there's fraud involved or something like that, like we're not trying to get involved with this borrower. It might be some things that are, may, way less misdemeanors. And it's like, okay, is what it is. That was 10 years ago. So be it. But again, you do deserve to understand that data. So between pulling a credit report and doing Google searches at the bare minimum, you should be able to get a lot of information about the borrower.
All right, everyone, that is the pod for today. We appreciate you checking out the show. Again, if you're considering taking the next step with our group and coming to work with us in person, go check out hardmoneymastermind.com, click on live events, talk to our team, and we hope to work with you in person. See you next time on the show.
Thank you for joining us on this Private Lenders Podcast episode. Please note that opinions stated by all the speakers on this show are only opinions and not legal, financial, or accounting advice. Please make sure to always check with your own legal, financial, and accounting professionals. If you enjoyed this episode of the Private Lenders Podcast, we would appreciate it if you could spread the word. Make sure to check out hardmoneymastermind.com, the #1 community for all private and hard money lenders.